Hello, it's Anna Hill here with the Farming Today podcast. This time, a new administration takes over in Wales. What does that mean for farmers who only started their new post-Brexit support scheme at the start of the year? And a project to map the soil on all of Northern Ireland's farmland is finally finished.
It was a huge undertaking. Many doubted we could deliver it, but we have, and I think it's an exemplar for other nations.
We'll have more on that a little later. First, a new centre to identify and address plant diseases is being set up with government funding of £3 million. The National Centre for Environmental Horticulture Plant Health will be virtual, operated by staff at the government's Animal and Plant Health Agency and the charity, the Royal Horticultural Society. It's hoped that commercial plant growers and gardeners too will send in evidence of pests and diseases to help stop their spread. The UK Chief Plant Health Officer Nicola Spence told me more.
We're not building anything, we're not creating new buildings, we're bringing together experts. For example, the RHS has more than 600,000 members, and we know that there are around 23 million gardeners in the UK. So if you combine all of that with the expertise of the plant and seeds inspectors in the Animal and Plant Health Agency and all the commercial inspections they do, for example, on imported plants, we've got a very, very powerful set of people and data we can use to address some of the new threats and prevent pests and diseases from entering the UK.
So for a commercial nursery, for instance, how would they fit in with this?
Professional horticulture businesses, as well as gardeners and landscapers, are the people on the ground seeing some of the new problems emerging. We can look at best practice for plant health in environmental horticulture and also look at what new innovative strategies we might be able to deploy to support the industry. We have access to the UK Plant Health Risk Register, which is a government-operated register of new and emerging threats. But we also have all the information that gardeners are feeding into the RHS Pest and Disease Identification Service. So that creates a very kind of rich base for us to understand what people are seeing in the professional sector as well as in gardeners.
Could you give me some examples of the sorts of things you're worried about?
One is an insect pest called Bemisia tobacci that comes in on things like poinsettia and basil. So it is a pest, but also more importantly, it is a vector for highly damaging plant viruses.
Will realignment with the EU and closer arrangements affect the risk of diseases and pests coming in at the border if there are fewer physical checks on plants entering the UK because things have been streamlined after the agreement comes through?
Well, it's certainly true that the plan is that we dynamically align with EU regulations, but we know that there are biosecurity threats from Europe, which is why we'll be negotiating to make sure that we have controls over the highest risk plants. We would like to have a national notification system for the highest risk plants so that we know what's coming in and where from, and we can still follow up and do inspections, whilst we won't be routinely inspecting things at the borders, through a combination of plant passports, national notification and intelligence. When our inspectors are visiting nurseries and other premises, maintaining high biosecurity is still paramount.
UK Chief Plant Health Officer Nicola Spence. We're heading into agriculture show season. At the end of this week, Farming Today will be reporting from the Balmoral Show just outside Belfast in Lisburn. And in the run-up to that, we're exploring different aspects of farming across Northern Ireland. Today, we're looking at Northern Ireland's unique Soil Nutrient Health Scheme, the largest baseline soil sampling programme ever undertaken. The £37 million government-funded project is managed by the AFBI, the Agri-Food and Bio-Science Institute. Due to its scale, it took 4 years to complete, and the final samples are now gathered and tested. Helen Mark met up with AFBI's Dr. Rachel Cassidy, who explained what the survey will mean for farmers.
To date, we've had 23,000 farmers participating. We've had over 600,000 samples taken, and every farmer gets back a full nutrient profile of their soil for macronutrients and pH. They get runoff risk maps where we predict areas of the farm at high risk of loss of nutrient or sediment and erosion to watercourses. They'll also receive estimates of soil carbon, so we can look at their soil carbon stock as a whole, and an above ground biomass, so the amount of carbon that might be stored in their hedges and woodlands, and that's a first for Northern Ireland. We have here in a livestock based system, mainly in Northern Ireland, and that there hasn't been great buy-in to nutrient management in terms of soil. We found back in 2018 that only around 10% of farmers had soil tested. So DERA funded it, and AFBI have rolled it out over the last 4 years.
And you have a big smile now, Rachel, because the final measurements have been taken.
Yes, the final zone is complete and farmers are receiving their final results as we speak. And it was a huge undertaking. It was a huge effort. Many doubted we could deliver it, but we have, and I think it's, I suppose, an exemplar for other nations that, you know, this can be done at this scale and with this sort of resolution, and it is a resource for farmers. We have an online viewer where they can see all their maps. It's unprecedented. It gives us a baseline now that we can work off, we can develop research, we can look at how we build advisory support to farmers. It's an incredible resource for the agricultural community in Northern Ireland.
23,000 farmers have taken part, and one of them is Ian Buchanan. And Ian, we've come to your farm. What's been your experience of taking part?
To get results for every field of soil analysis is unbelievable, and we know the nutrients that we have in the fields and know what nutrients now to sow in every specific field. If it's for grazing or for silage, we know exactly what to put on. The information we're getting is not just about part of the farm, it's for all the farm, and we can look at the whole farm in totality. It saves us money. We can save on certain fertilisers we don't need, and we see where lime is required, for example. We were doing it on a very limited basis, but to get the whole farm done, it's a tremendous useful tool for the business.
Ian, you have a document out with you here, and it's got a list of the fields. Well, they're numbers, but more importantly, I often think are the lovely field names that we have. We've got Upper Meadow, we've got Matts Park, Canes Hill, Jane's Ground, above Jane's Ground. There's the acreage, there's the date the soil samples were done. These are the results that you got back. What information did it give you?
Well, when we got the results, the essential ones I regarded for our farm was the pH level and how much lime would be required on those fields to bring them up to a suitable level of pH to be able to grow grass and clover. And then we also got the phosphate and potash levels, and if some of the fields were too high in potash, we made a point of no slurry going onto those fields. And you can see there's some fields that need phosphate and potash. It's not a blanket application over the whole farm. It's more targeted and makes more sense. The scheme is of immense benefit to individual farmers. We can save money in not applying excess nutrients that are not required. It is a win-win for both the farmer and the environment.
Farmer Ian Buchanan there, and we'll have more from Northern Ireland tomorrow. As politicians of all stripes digest the results from Thursday's elections, farmers in Wales and Scotland are facing some questions, as neither Plaid Cymru in Wales nor the SNP in Scotland have ended up with an outright majority. In Scotland, Mairi Gougeon, the Rural Affairs Secretary, didn't stand for re-election, so a new appointment will have to be made there. In Wales, Plaid Cymru's Rhun ap Iorwerth looks set to be confirmed as the new First Minister after last week's historic Senedd election. It'll bring to an end 27 years of Labour rule in Wales. Plaid won 43 out of the 96 seats in an expanded Welsh Parliament, so is short of an outright majority. It means the Welsh Pro-Independence Party will need the support of others to pass laws and a budget in future. So what does it all mean for agriculture and the environment, both policy areas that are largely devolved? I spoke to BBC Wales environment correspondent Stefan Messenger and asked him what we know already about Plaid's plan for farming.
Well, usefully, Plaid Cymru had published a document in the run-up to the election outlining its plan for the first 100 days if it came into power. So in terms of what they'll do on farming, first up they said they'd confirm a multi-year funding cycle for post-Brexit farm subsidies. So this is the new sustainable farming scheme, which we've talked about a lot and which is only just coming in after years in development and lots of rows and protests about how it'll all work. The deadline for applying for it is this Friday, in fact. So there are farmers up and down the country now weighing up whether to go in for the SFS with its different requirements and greener focus, or stick with the old subsidies for now as they're phased out, which means they'll get less money next year. And one of the things the farming unions had called for was for the budget for the SFS to be set over a longer time frame, 3-4 years, rather than just finding out every year how much cash is available. And they said that would mean farm businesses would be better able to plan for the future, and Plaid say they'll do that. They also say they'll commission, in their words, an independent review of the bureaucratic burden on family farms to reduce duplication and unnecessary paperwork. And they're promising, Anna, a new national food strategy with a big aim there of using public procurement to support Wales's food and drink industry, so more Welsh food served in schools, hospitals and so on.
That does sound quite different, the approach to farming than under Labour in Wales.
It's interesting because I think Plaid have traditionally had a big rural voter base in what were seen as their sort of heartland areas in North and West Wales. So they've been pushing for changes to the SFS in recent years, changes to the new regulations on agricultural pollution that Welsh Labour brought in, stricter rules on spreading and storing slurry and fertiliser, which were deeply unpopular with the industry. What's clear from this election, though, is Plaid now also has a very big urban presence, voters who perhaps have different priorities. They swept to victory in Cardiff, for instance, winning 6 out of the 12 seats up for grabs across the capital. And so they have a bit of a balancing act now, because while wanting to be seen as firmly on the side of the farming industry, they're also pushing a very progressive agenda on issues like climate action, nature loss. They want to get to net zero by 2040, for example, 10 years sooner than the UK target. They want to see substantive nature recovery by 2050. So how they approach issues like the water pollution regulations, any rollback on those, what changes will there be to the SFS, how are they planning to address the industry's greenhouse gas emissions as part of that net zero 2040 push, what about onshore wind, solar farms, pylons and so on, that'll all be closely scrutinised.
Plaid didn't get an all-out majority, did they? They'll need the support of other parties. So is that likely to be forthcoming?
So I think that remains to be seen. We have 43 Plaid MSs short of that outright majority, as you say, of 49. Reform are the second largest party with 34. Labour have been reduced to just 9 seats. The Conservatives have 7. The Greens make their debut in terms of a Senedd presence with 2 seats, and the Lib Dems have 1. Now, there will be a lot of things Plaid can just, crack on with without needing to involve other parties when it comes to those reviews and strategies we mentioned. But when it comes to passing the budget and the allocation there for farming, when it comes to any major changes to how the SFS works or those water pollution regs, they'll need to get that through the Senedd. Do they turn to Labour to make up the numbers there? Tricky maybe, because, they came up with all of those policies in the first place. Do they go the other way and talk to the Tories or Reform, who want far-reaching changes? There was a Reform MS on our Politics Wales show on Sunday saying they'd vote with the new government if it meant stopping the SFS. That's probably not the avenue Plaid wants to go down. So we'll have to see. It'll certainly be interesting to watch.
BBC Wales Environment correspondent Stefan Messenger. That's all from us. I'm Anna Hill. The producer is Rebecca Rooney. Farming Today is a BBC Audio Bristol production.